Hello, my name is Haya Al Qadi. I'm a marketer by day, a gamer by night. I will be moderating a very interesting topic today, which is education and esports and how to become a professional gamer. Today, we are going to talk about more about the professional gaming. Could you all tell us a bit more about yourselves, starting with Dr. Mark, and then Michael, and then Kofi?
Sure. I want to say thank you for inviting me to this amazing conference. Give a shout out to Kofi, who's on the panel here. He's the one that introduced me to this wonderful event. I've been reading about what you've done over the last year, and I'm honored and blessed to be here, coming from Miami, Florida, South Florida. And many of you have been to Miami, heard of Miami. I live in Miami now. So I'm at the great historically Black college, Florida Memorial University, founded in 1879 here, and we're in South Florida. And I'm my position and title is the Global Scholar Practitioner. So that means I work in the Provost's office, and I'm working on a brand new STEM program to focus on technology and esports and gaming for our students. And we're one of the few HBCUs in the country that are actually addressing and tackling this issue. And my background is in sports marketing. So I spent a number of years working in sports marketing. I was working for Reebok. I worked for athletic retailer Foot Action and Champ Sports. And I worked closely with the publishers in the video game industry since 1999 when we sponsored the Madden tournament. And then I've done product placement in over 55 video games when I was in corporate America. In addition to that, my job was to oversee marketing and branding for our company at Champ Sports, and we helped them become $1 billion brand. And now my doctorate's in curriculum and instruction. So I've done created curriculum for 10 universities, and I work closely with the White House and the Department of Education on identifying how do we find funding for low resource institutions and historically Black colleges. So I'm excited to be here. So thank you for inviting me to this panel.
Thank you, Dr. Mark. Michael, could you tell us more about yourself?
Hi, yeah, thank you. Yeah, a big merci to Kofi for the invitation to be part of this great event. Very important, real part of this fourth industrial revolution, right? And emerging technology is incredibly important. So in terms of me, I'm very boring, sorry. Interesting projects, boring guy. I'll give you kind of just a broad overview of what I've done in the past, bearing in mind that our ecosystem is very simple. It's basically media, then policy, academia, and the commercial sector. And every day we flow, all of us, through those different parts of the ecosystem. So in terms of the media part, I guess the highlight would be having got PlayStation to sponsor a festival called Nerve at the ICA in London, going way back to '99. That was, I guess, my introduction to the to the field. In terms of policy making, I worked in Portugal with the last socialist government over there on building the creative industries cluster. And of course, video gaming is included within the definition of creative industries, right? Alongside the other sectors such as fashion or design or education, software, and so on. Video gaming is actually the biggest chunk in the UK, and it's a huge industry. It's, it's 100 billion worth to GDP in normal circumstances. Later on, I ran a couple of universities in Portugal as well, as president of ETIC and IPA Polytechnics. I currently, based in London, I'm helping startups to either source clients or to source investment, all in emerging technology, whether it's augmented reality, machine learning, a lot of blockchain. And I'm seeing huge amount of convergence between all of the emerging technologies, all these buzzwords, and video gaming and entertainment and education. So these are really interesting times. And in addition to that, I teach at university in Sika, which I know other panelists also share this passion for education and for passing on knowledge. I've set up a module around virtual reality and encouraging the students to look at either virtual banks or virtual festivals. And this is for INSEEK, the French group, but I'm based in London, their London campus. And parallel to that, and I think this is also relevant, I do some charity work. One of them is for a charity called Give, which is all about education for young people. And how do we want, or how can we change the world? We can change it by encouraging young people from school age, primary school, kindergarten maybe, to give to charity. So they choose charities and they give to them. That's Give. Yeah. And then NECTOM is the other charity I support, which is Oxford University's oceanology project. It's all about trying to map the ocean floor all over the world, okay? Because, you know, 97% of the habitable space on this planet is ocean. And maybe there are some clues down there. Maybe there are some solutions to the problems that we have on the surface down there if we take time to map it. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I'm really looking forward to the exchange and discussion today. Thank you again for the invitation.
Thank you, Michael. Kofi, I suppose we have to thank you for bringing us all in together. Yeah, so do let me know, like, tell us more about yourself, and maybe also tell us, where do you think the future of esports is going? I mean, is it going to keep growing at the pace it currently is?
Before he starts, I just wanted to say, Michael said he was boring. He is not boring.
Exactly, he's not boring. So thanks everybody to be there with me. Thanks also to our sponsor Neom, ITP Media, and Vibe and Robocom there to permit us to stay there at this beautiful conference. So my name is Kofi. I am the co-founder of the first 360 gaming agency in Africa called Gamecampcities. So we are one of the first agency specially focused on the video game industry. So we help brands, enterprises, and governments to reach their full potential in gaming. And I'm also a part-time professor in France at Sketch Business School, which is a renowned educational structure on the ranking of Forbes for the entrepreneurship and research potential. So there, I build a course specifically on design and esports. So my role is to teach to the students what is the reality of the video game industry, and all from their background, they can use their own jobs for enter in the industry. So this is really the focus. So during these last 2 years, I was responsible to coach 100 students on this field. It's not easy at all. And yes, we will see how the esport trends will grow in the next 5 years. And I think that we are already at a critical point with the global pandemic, because the trend that we need to accept is the digitalization, because the pandemic pushed further the trend of video game industry. Is a fact. Every industry was impacted negatively from the COVID. The only one which is impacted positively is the video game industry. So in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, people who don't hear about video games, or people who don't like video games, will be obliged to deal or do something with this industry. This is the reality. And I think that looking at a region like the MENA region, specifically Saudi Arabia, where the economic potential is about $32 million of industry, it's important that the government of Saudi Arabia has a proper strategy about the monitoring of this industry. And I think that is clear in the Vision 2030 plan, specifically with NEOM. I think that NEOM is the first smart city in the world who integrates a gaming strategy from the start, from the scratch. It's important to notice that. I think that is a clear message for the region, that the region understands the creative industry, the field of video game, and how she needs to drive the youth on this path.
Yeah, no, that was really interesting, Kofi. The idea of building a cluster, okay?
Yeah.
Because this is the opportunity for Neom to build a cluster, and it's great to be famous for something globally, right? So there are a couple of examples that I can point towards. One is the work that we did in Portugal. We did a macroeconomic study before the launch of the cluster, and that macroeconomic study indicated which areas we should focus on. And then after the mapping, of course, you encourage networking within the sector. So getting everyone talking to each other, which is something we take for granted. But of course, innovation comes from connecting the unconnected, right? So if you can connect all the different players within the ecosystem, new projects will emerge, new startups, new innovation, new intellectual property. And then, of course, you'll have critical mass to promote something internationally, nationally and internationally. You'll have something to promote. So that's the Portugal example. Fast forwarding a few years to the UK, to London, post-Olympics 2012, they had a legacy policy.
Yeah.
So it was important to have the big moment, okay? Historically, a city needs a big moment. Barcelona had its big moment back in the day. That's why it's so big now and powerful. Lisbon had the Expo in '98. Now they've got the Web Summit all these years later. There's a correlation, in other words, between the celebration of a big event and then later on the economic impact. So in London, after 2012, that's where Tech City came from, okay? So the UK associated itself with technology. Yeah. Up until then, it had been about creativity, Creative Britain, Creative Ireland. Afterwards, it was about Tech City and then Tech UK, and then more recently, Tech Nation. And it was all a dedicated policy betting on certain sectors because you can't bet on all of them. And so you have to think about what can your region be famous for, and then really, really go for it internationally. And for the UK, of course, there are two things that are very important. It was about talent and allowing talent, visas and so on, fast tracking. That's really important. And the other thing was tax relief to help incentivize as well. And in terms of connectivity, there's no problem at all with the region. They've got brilliant facilities in terms of infrastructure and connectivity. And so I think a combination of different factors will allow the cluster to grow. But it'd be interesting to get your take on it. You're much nearer to the region than me, and to get your guys' opinion and feedback as well.
Okay, so yes, I completely agree with what you said, and I think that just regarding the evolution of the relationship between, for example, the government of Saudi Arabia and the video game industry, I think that is a clear example. For example, I know that the government wants to invest in a data center for the region in Saudi Arabia, and it's very, very interesting to see how the government understands the reality of the gaming industry. If you want to impact a region, you need to have a data center, because if you take a data center there in Saudi Arabia, you have the capacity to serve all the region of the MENA, because all the gamers will connect on this data center. And then Saudi Arabia become the epicenter of the ecosystem of gaming in the region. I think that is very important that government understand that if they want to win at the race in the gaming, we need to have the capacity to fund a data center, is the first thing. The second thing is about education. And I think that for education, I will let Marc talk a lot about that, because I think that he's more skilled than me in these topics. But just regarding my experience, Teach Esports is something very new in the curriculum. So we are just starting to teach esports. If you look at, for example, in France, if you look at in Spain, you will just find one or two esports school dedicated, or sometimes they try to create a little program inside the business school curriculum. So it's very new. We don't have the right formula. That's why people from the esports sector, the marketing sector, we call everybody for trying to teach esports. That's the reality. I want to listen to Marc about this experience about esports in academics in the United States, for example.
Oh, sure. I'll be honest. Sure. Basically, you know, in America, it's interesting. Currently, we have 500 universities that play varsity sports, as we know it, as far as esports. So 500 schools are playing varsity sports where they give out scholarships for students to play at the highest level. There's another good maybe 1,800 to 2,000 schools that are, you know, that are casual players that do intramurals. And I am now the commissioner of the new historically Black college esports league, and we have 30 universities out of the 101. We have 30 of them, and the pandemic is pretty impressive. So I want to give a shout out to my associate commissioner, Rod Chappelle. But our partner is the Collegiate Star League, which is the largest collegiate esports competition in the world, and so they own that space. And so what we're doing is that we're focused on not only the competition, but we're also focused on how to get colleges and how to get the students engaged in terms of getting them pathways into getting jobs in the industry and focusing on STEM and technology. So right now there's currently about 75, 76 universities that are focused on curriculum, and maybe about 20 schools that really are doing a phenomenal job with it. Everybody's new at it. In the HBCU space, there really isn't anyone that's taken the mantle to be the person or group, the school to be the school that do it first. Kentucky State University is the first to really have a program. Johnson C. Smith now is starting to create something at their school. And obviously at Florida Memorial, we are, and now that I'm there, I'm taking the baton, so to speak, using a track metaphor and running with it. But I'm focusing on creating a STEM related program. But in the States, there's really 4 states that are really doing a phenomenal job with the ecosystem. First and foremost, Dallas, Texas is like the Silicon Valley of esports. Where you Frisco, Texas has the largest. Oh my goodness! See, I got to walk around the room here because of the lighting.
Yeah.
The lighting keeps going out, so I'm back here like magic, guys. So for some reason, the lights go out every 10 minutes. So I'm back here, and I did the magic trick, and you heard my voice. I'm back. Poof. So so basically, we have Dallas, the ecosystem. They have the largest esports arena in the world in Frisco. And then you also have outside of Dallas, you have Atlanta, LA, and then Raleigh, North Carolina. And so other cities right now, I just came from a conference called the Esports Travel Summit, and they have all of the sports commissions and visitors bureaus come, and they want to know, how do we bring esports to our city to bring economic development? How do we increase awareness about it? How do we get people more engaged? How do we get, and then as far as the Black community and minority community, how do we get Black people and Black children and brown children immersed in this space? And so I'm using the STEM approach, and I'm using technology as the basis of this, because technology drives it all. And if we get young Black people and people of color to believe in STEM in a way that is encouraging and empowering by saying, let's use technology, because technology is the driving force. And we start getting young Black kids and brown people thinking that technology and STEM is the way to go, and then using the A in arts for looking at music as well, and that piece and make it STEAM, then we're ahead of the game. But right now, esports, people don't understand. Esports is just a sliver of the video game industry. You know, the video game industry in 2022 will be $200 billion. 200 billion would it be? Esports represents only 7% of that. So if this was baseball, this is inning number 1. So we're at the very beginning of it. So we have no idea, and we haven't really done collaborative work with other countries. I know, Kofi, you and I talked that there's about 35, 36 African countries, in the continent of Africa that are immersed in this space. And Brother Michael, imagine if we were to be able to do just some kind of a connection where we bring our knowledge and you match with your knowledge, and we do some kind of a partnership. How powerful that will be. And then in the Black community, we haven't done that yet, but we can. And I really think there's a lot of opportunities here for us to collaborate and create, a win-win and a symbiotic relationship. Like on the continent of Africa, I mean, mobile gaming is big because of the fact that they don't have the opportunity to have the internet like we have. So mobile gaming is going to be big, and that's a $19 billion industry. And I think the continent of Africa is next. That's what I think is next in terms of mobile gaming. I think they're next. I mean, China's right now is about 7 billion, I believe they comprise of that. But I think the continent is next. And I think we have a unique opportunity to work together collaboratively and create something powerful.
Thank you, Dr. Marc. Michael, you spoke about how the governments are betting on different industries. And Kofi, you've spoken about how certain universities are following the first-to-market approach without really understanding what esports is really about. Dr. Marc, you've mentioned a few institutions, a few universities that have really excelled at providing an esports program. Could you tell us what they have succeeded so that Saudi could follow suit? Because we know that they are following that industry, that trend. They're investing heavily in the esports industry. So what could you provide for Saudi, the achievements that these organizations have done?
I think in America, there's a few schools. UCI, University of California, Irvine, is definitely one of the leaders that
the first one.
Yeah, they're one of the first ones to do it. The first one to have a program is Becker College up in Massachusetts. They're the first one to have a business degree in 2017. UCI is one of the first ones to have a fully comprehensive program. Robert Morris is another one. Mayersville, they're another school. There's schools like Ohio State that's built a comprehensive program in terms of building one of the largest arenas in college, 9,000-seat arena at Ohio State. And they also have an academic program that comprises of, creating a melting pot of various majors that are melting together at Ohio State. So every school is going to be different in how they do it. But some of those Black HBCUs, we're now getting immersed into it. So it's new for the HBCUs now. But the schools that I just named, Millersville, Becker College, UCI, Ohio State, those are some of the schools that are leaders in what they're doing. And you take a blueprint from that. But I think it's going to be a combination of academia, also research. I also think the gameplay in terms of looking at what you're doing with the games. We are doing something different from a lot of the predominantly white schools. We're focusing only on sports games and not first-person shooter games because of all the violent deaths and shooting of Black men and women in the streets with police. So we're focusing on the sports games only for now. And there are going to be other schools that might use shooter games or fighter games, but we're focusing on the sports games first and only. That's what's differentiates us from everyone else. But I think to look at, if you want to follow the lead of what we're doing in America, you want to look at a strong academic program. I would strongly recommend STEM-based technology, but also marry it with the business school, computer science, psychology, sociology. You mix it with, you create a comprehensive program, and then you look at the game space. Do you want to have teams? If you have teams, what does it look like? Is it varsity teams? Is it casual teams? So there's a number of ways that you could approach it, but we're approaching it with academics first, and then we'll go to the game second.
Yeah, so I think that I want just to add some key element at Marc's speech that is very interesting. Regarding us at Gamecampcities, since exactly 4 years, we are partner of the UTV, University of Texas, Dallas, just 4 years. And what we learned so far with this university, first, they have a grant of research in esports. It's a grant of $5 million USD. What does it mean? It means that the educational structure decide to invest massively in research for understand very well what's happening in the space. This is the first point. After that, you have also the government leadership. If you look at the biggest infrastructure in esports in North America, is about the Arlington Esports Stadium in Texas. So a full stadium dedicated to esports, and which is the two founding partners of this esports stadium. The first one is the US Army, unbelievable. The second one is NVIDIA. So you see the US Army invests in esports infrastructure, and NVIDIA, which is the leader of graphic chip in the world, invests also massively in infrastructure. So I think that is a clear example of how you think when you want to go infrastructure way, is the first thing. The second example that is very interesting is the example of UC Irvine, which is I think is my favorite. Why? Because it's the first university who understand that they need to build a space for gamers inside the university. So they build an arena, 100 PC gamers investment. And this arena, everything happened. People come for learn, for make the study, for play, for compete, but also for teach skills. For example, if you want to be a streamer, a live streamer, you can go to the esports arena. What does it mean? It means that the university need to understand the business model of an esports arena for use it inside the university. Very important. And the last one is how you involve the student, because here you deploy 100 PC gamers and then everybody just come to play. No, it's not like that. More you are competitive, more you are a performer, more you have the capacity to represent the flag of the university on different competition all around the world, then the university reimburses you your fees for your academic study. It means that more you play and more your academic study is free for you because you play like a basketball player from the university. And I think that so far, university in the world need to understand this business model, because if you don't understand it, it will be really difficult to take the world video games in the learning curriculum. For example, in Africa, and I think that in the MENA region, in the North Africa, in the MENA region also, tell to your parents that you go to school just for play. It will become crazy. So it's important that you have the capacity to explain clearly the business model, all your students, all your children will use his education skills for enter the esports from his university. This is the point that I want to add to Marc.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
excellent.
Yeah.
Really good points. And leading on from that, I'd like to also add the idea of mega trends within education and within society generally. So 5G is coming, 6G. The telcos are going to have a big responsibility. You mentioned data centers, and it's interesting the first data centers are emerging in the region, and I think that will really boost esports in Africa and across the Middle East. That's really important. And then there's a convergence, a very nice convergence in terms of other emerging technologies, okay? Everyone saw Pokemon Go. Everyone's looking about augmented reality. Everyone's waiting for the next hardware to come through. I'm seeing a very nice convergence of 5G, 6G, really high speeds, and the augmented reality, virtual reality, XR, whatever you, MR, all kinds of R are coming, all kinds of reality is coming. And because of games-based education from a young age, there will be mass adoption. Yeah. It will be just seen as normal, okay? This is an interesting point in history in terms of the education model shifting. Yeah. Part of it because of the pandemic, but part of it because of the fourth industrial revolution technologies like VR, like blockchain, like AI, machine learning. They're driving things in a certain way. And it means for the first time in a very long time, the education structure will actually change. Okay? And this has been pointed out by Nicholas Negroponte over at MIT. He makes a very nice comparison. He says, compare a surgeon from 200 years ago, transported through time from 200 years ago to today. A surgeon would be lost, okay? Yeah. Instruments, education, everything different. Now, transport a teacher, 200 years to today, they'd be fine. There's a blackboard, well, it's now a whiteboard, but now they'd be fine. They're used to rows of people in front of them, and that's not able to be sustainable, right? We need, in the middle of revolutions, to change in a revolutionary way education. So that's why I think there's a nice opportunity there for the esports sector in particular, and the idea of games-based education, driving things ahead. And then you've got this generation who are open-minded, and they won't be thinking about a fixed job in one particular sector. They'll be thinking about various side hustles. And all that education does is give them the foundations, right, to be happy in life. And they can choose the sector that they go in. I'm sure this generation will be more entrepreneurial. Okay, the idea of having a startup and starting from their own is seen as a positive these days. Perhaps being entrepreneurial was a negative, had a pejorative connotation in the past, but being entrepreneurial now and startup culture is a positive. And so I think driving ahead, there are lots of different spillover economy that will emerge from video gaming, esports, some that you haven't even thought of yet. Yeah. But they will emerge.
One of the things that I can say that even with the startup piece, in America, you know, as far as young Black entrepreneurs, we're less than 1%. And so what you find is you don't see a lot of venture capitalists out there that are helping young Black kids. I see, like in Dallas and Frisco, I'm part of an incubator called, there's an incubator in Frisco area that basically provides funding in dollars for budding esports companies, and 99% of the people that present these pitches are white companies. So you don't see women and you don't see ethnic minorities doing it, but I'm now starting to meet more Black VCs now. And I think that when you have more VCs that are Black, that are interested in helping Black people to achieve this and learn about this, we want to make the invisible visible, okay?
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah. No, this is really important. Yeah, and people who have experience of big exits as well is important. And also in terms of diversity, to have angels investing, right? And so you mentioned VCs, but sometimes it's really about someone who has a diverse background, who's done well. You know, they're a senior VP, EVP, C-level, and they're in a position where they not only can pass on their knowledge in terms of mentoring, but possibly they can invest in these startups. And I'm seeing more and more of these kinds of programs emerging as well, to give the youth, the next generation, that first break. Okay, all that they need is someone opening that first door, and they'll just run through and they'll do their magic. But it's setting up structures in place to give them that first break.
Exactly. I think that for me, from my point of view regarding Saudi Arabia, I'm very confident, and I want to tell you why. First, regarding the 5 years that I passed at the position of country lead for the NASA Space App Innovation Program, I understand that the MENA region, specifically Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and UAE, they are very good in science and STEM. They win a lot of competition worldwide. So it means that the background already, the scientific background for this youth is already good. In fact, they are ready for this kind of shift in the education. And if you look at the strategy, for example, of the Dubai government since 2016, the Dubai government already includes VR in the curriculum nationwide from the Ministry of Education. Since 2016, the first prototype about VR in the national education program is a reality. And it's not 10 countries in the world who are in this space. I think that there are UAE, I think France, I think country also like I I think also Estonia. So it means that we have already the foundation for create something very interesting. And regarding esports, Saudi Arabia has already, I think, a good role model. For example, in 2018, MS Dosari became the world eFIFA World Cup champion. Is already a legend in Saudi Arabia. So it means that the youth can have a role model from their country for have a good representation in this sector. And I think that all the ecosystem need to play with this little winning. Okay, we have an esport player, well-known, famous in the world. Yes, we have a federation in Saudi Arabia. We just make a partnership with Adidas, a sport brand. We have a government who are ready to fund a data center in the region. We have already the key elements of the success for the ecosystem. But if we don't care, because this is already a long-term plan, a long-term run, if you don't involve everybody and you don't masterize all the players of the ecosystem, you can lose the party also very quickly. That is very important to push, to connect, to legitimize, to promote, and to share a business model around this industry. Because at the end of the day, people want to know that if this industry permits us to pay our bills at the end of the month, that's the reality.
Yeah, thank you all. You all provided amazing insights. And speaking of education and esports, I'd also like to shed a light on professional gamers and how education institutions will help pave the way and provide them more opportunities. Michael, you've spoken about Pokemon Go, and we know that the game was so popular and suddenly the creator decided to stop the game. So what happens to these professional esports players who've been training all their lives on a certain game and the game suddenly dies out, where the developers do not want to create anymore? Will these institutions help them gain soft skills, provide them not just be able to focus on one game, but their skills could be applied in so many other games, probably provide them other opportunities like being able to stream and host? What's your take on it? Yes.
Exactly right. Yeah, I agree with you.
Good question.
It's about, really good question. It's about sovereign data, okay?
Yeah.
And it's about empowering the individual. And so, and this is part of the decentralization issue as well around blockchain. So if people have got control of their data, they know that they've got control of their data as a gamer, they know that they're part of a community, a decentralized one. That's a very powerful movement to be part of, okay? So they don't need to be worried about being centralized around one game or one ecosystem. They empower themselves by being with like-minded esports professionals. And now it can be globally, right? They can be anywhere because of the internet access we talked about and alluded to earlier. So you're right, the soft skills are needed. The building blocks are definitely needed. But because of the nature of technology moving so fast, I'm seeing this convergence, like I said, between these emerging technologies where people's data is sovereign and they know the value of it and they can monetize their data. And they know that their eye movements when they're playing, when they're doing a game has a value, and someone's facial recognition has a value. They can monetize this. That's one thing. They can also develop their own games and move ahead in that area. But then there's one area that we haven't talked about yet in terms of education. It's about who pays for it. How does education get paid for in the future? And I think this is the fascinating part, okay? Because there's an opportunity here to shift and empower the next generation by looking at the payment system as it stands at the moment and encouraging some kind of mechanism so that there is money flowing back into the system to make sure that people are getting their fair share of education and fair chance and fair investment. I think there's an opportunity, and that's related to the crypto trend and blockchain, but it's not just about the usual crypto, it's about the transparency that you get from being able to follow the supply chain of education from A to B, all the way through from A to B, and to focus on making sure that some of that revenue goes back into the ecosystems, go back into the system to support the next generation coming through. And this is the first. We haven't seen a challenge to the financial systems like this ever. So these are really exciting times, and again, in terms of fourth industrial revolution.
Yes, just for add some substance at the point of Michael. By the way, a very interesting question you give as well. And if I take of my experience regarding my course, this is exactly when I try to communicate or to teach to my students, because in fact, esports is a sport of youth. What does it mean? It means that it will be hard for you to stay in the competitive esports circuit above 30 years. Is difficult. Why? Because in the science, at 30 years old, the correlation between your head and the movement of your arm, your body, is not the same. So you are very fresh at 20, at 25, but at 30, it will be very difficult. If you analyze the data about the esport player, the most powerful esport player in the world, they have the capacity to take at a minimum more than 50 decisions in 1 minute. More than 50 decisions in 1 minute. Compare one decision about press on the key of the button in your keyboard. I want to strike, my server say I want to strike. The time that my server say to my hand to push the keyboard is a decision. So more you become older, this latency of timing reactivity decrease because you become older. But it means that esports, you can do esports all your life. It's not possible. It's not possible. And generally, when you was successful at 20, at 25, at 30, you begin to slide with managerial position. If you were an esport player, then you become a commentator, or you become a coach, or you become an advisor for VCs or investor. What does it mean? It means that young people in the class, when you teach them about esports, they need to understand about that. The long life learning of esports curriculum. You can do it all your life, and you see every two years a new game, a new technology will become more faster, more bigger. So if you were a Counter-Strike professional player during 10 years and then Valorant arrived, you need to change everything. You need to reteach yourself how to play Valorant. And you can't do that all your life. Is not possible. So it's important to understand the universe of jobs and discipline around the esport ecosystem. What is a pro player? What is a caster? What is a marketer? Every aspect of the discipline, every aspect of the creative industries, you need to understand it. To have the capacity to shift or to move when all the ecosystem of the market change. Just an example, the pandemic arrived. For example, us in Africa, the majority of our players don't play a lot online because the connectivity is sometimes difficult. So they have the habit to play on local network. So they go at an event and they play locally. With the COVID, you can do that. So what does it mean? It means that is during the COVID that some players understand that they need now to shift in full online mode. What it takes? You need to have a more expensive hardware. You need to pay your connectivity. So all the world changed in just a matter of time. At the same time, for the organizer, esport organizer, we have the habit to design greatest show in stadium. They need to think very fast how to switch completely online. And I think that the future will be a bridge. So event online with the final in physical place. And as again, you need to teach your youth about all these specificities of the market so they can react and adapt at the same time.
Yeah, it definitely is interesting with all that eye-hand coordination. You would think esports should be a definite part of the Olympics. And touching more on the professional players, I want to ask you, Dr. Marc, do you suppose in the future, to become a professional esport player, you will have to have a degree? You have to pursue a degree? Just like when you want to be a surgeon or an engineer, you would acquire a degree for that. Do you suppose that esports would follow suit?
Right now, esports is not taking on the traditional ideologies of what traditional college sports is like. Right now, and if you look at the NCAA, players can't get paid any money. They have scholarships that get them to college to play their sport, but they're not allowed to play, but get paid. And the universities are making beyond millions of dollars off the likeness of these athletes. It's insanity to me. They should get paid. They've always should get paid. To me, it's insanity. And some people will say, well, they shouldn't get paid. And I'm thinking, if you have a young man or a young woman who's proficient in, let's say, computer technology, and Google decides to hire them when they're a sophomore, they can leave and go. They can leave as a freshman. But if you are playing college football in America, you cannot leave your freshman or sophomore year. You've got to stay in school to play football. In order to go, you can go your junior year. That's insanity to me. To me, it's modern day slavery, in my opinion. Yeah, I said it. I said it. That's right. I'm not worried about the repercussions, because the bottom line is, I don't even understand in 2020 why we're having that debate. It's insanity to me. And if you look at the sports that are high revenue generated sports, basketball and football, they're occupied by who? People of color, Black students. So again, I have a serious problem with that. Do I think esports going to follow suit? Absolutely not. They're already shown, they're kind of waving their nose at the NCAA, saying the players that are playing varsity sport can get paid. So there's going to come a time where student athletes that are playing college football, that want to play college football, and they have a chance to look at this much more critically and say, okay, I might not play in the NFL, and so I don't want to get a concussion to hurt myself and later on in life. So why should I go to school and play college football and get a scholarship when I can go play Call of Duty and get a scholarship and get paid? And if I decide to go pro, I don't have to graduate. I can go back to school if I want to. So for me, at our university, if I was someone who was in charge of making a decision as far as esports in general, as far as legislating this for America, I would not suggest that they have to have a degree to go pro. I think that's insanity. They can always go back to school. Okay, when I look at an esports professional athlete, the person that's going to play a sport, the esport, I mean, the longevity, they're not going to be playing to their 30 and 40 playing pro like you might have professional athletes playing pro. And the video game industry, playing professional, your life expectancy is much shorter than it is to play if you were to play professional sports. Even if professional sports is 3 to 5 years, not everybody's going to play 20 years like Kobe Bryant or Vince Carter. Okay, exactly. But the average life expectancy playing pro athlete is 3 to 5 years. But in the video game industry, it's the same thing. So I think it's insanity to even broach that conversation of saying, or even consider people have to getting a degree. I don't think you need a degree to play pro sports, play pro video games.
Yes, no, definitely, I agree. What we have spoken today, it's a lot of interesting topics. It's interesting where esports is headed. Definitely during the pandemic, a lot of light have shed on how important esports is, how untapped it is. Definitely Saudi is right now currently heavily investing in esports, understanding the value, and it definitely would be interesting to see where it's going in the next 5 years. I would like to thank you, Dr. Marc, Kofi, and Michael for all your contributions. Thank you for being here today and sharing amazing insights for the viewers, for me, for everyone who are interested in esports in general. Hopefully we'll see you again for the next digital gaming conference. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you too. It was a pleasure.
Yes, thank you very much. A great exchange. Thank you.
And that was an exciting talk about how to be a professional in the esports world. Thank you so much for the panel discussion. Heading to another session with esports as well, but this time how to be a girl gamer professional in the esport world. Happening right now, coming up next with our moderator, Millie Midwood. Game on, let's go.